And Padre Pio, when he was approached by a penitent who was a Freemason, told that penitent, and we know this not because Padre Pio revealed the confession, which is a sin, but the penitent shared this with others after the confessional. He said that Padre Pio told me, unless I renounce Freemasonry right here, he will not absolve me. So Freemasonry, because it has as its purpose the destruction of the Christian church and its mores, and also the downthrow of the papacy and the elimination of the Eucharist, replacing it with Satan as the god, the church has condemned all ties of Christian Catholics with Freemasonry.
So you can pretty much guess it already that the main focus of this video is going to be on the Freemasons and the dangers related to it. And I've shared a shorter version of this former Freemasons interview the other day, but this time I want to dive a little deeper into the whole thing. But before I share that, there's this very short clip of Father Chad Ripperger I want to share with you first. Now listen carefully to what he said here, because there are a couple of things shared by the former Mason that are quite similar. It's not long, only about a minute.
Our Lady said at Quito that the Freemasons, which by the way is a thoroughly diabolic institution, thoroughly from the bottom to the top. Now I'm not suggesting that the people at the bottom actually are Satanists, but when you get to the top, there's a shift that's actually happening culturally. Historically, it was Luciferian, which is different from Satanic. Luciferian is you become your own god, or that's generally what the Freemasons were at the top levels. But now what's happening is there's a slow shift that's actually occurring among the Freemasons where it's actually becoming satanic, openly satanic at the top. Okay. But they said they were going to, Our Lady said at Quito, they were going to attack marriage during the time we're living in. And they've done a phenomenal job with divorce, etc., and everything that they're doing. Most people don't know this, but the ones who started the swing culture in this country were actually the Freemasons. The ones that are backing all of the gay marriage and stuff like that are the Freemasons, in addition to other people. But they're the ones pushing for this because they're trying to destroy marriage. It just means that they're the instrument. It's the demons who are really after the destruction of marriage. Why? Because marriage is the foundation of culture. If you can destroy marriage, you can destroy the culture. If you can destroy the relationship that the husband and the wife have together, you will destroy the moral and spiritual formation of the children. So they understand the structure better than we do, and they know exactly where to attack it.
By the way, here's an example of a Master Mason taking his oath from a leaked video of their ceremony. And as I said earlier, I want to share this clip of an interview of a former Mason with you, and the subsequent clips of priests after this one will all be on the Freemasons. So listen to this if you can, and if you want to skip it, please refer to the timestamps below.
After we had our blindfolds removed, they gave us, they show us how to do the grips and all these things. They gave us the ID card, and they also gave us a little yellow card. I know I've gotten some flack on my previous video because they say, oh, well, we don't get any little yellow cards. You're absolutely right. This is not something standard. This is something that the Grand Master whipped up for this particular batch of entered apprentices. And what it is, it was a double-sided card. One was a prayer that you're supposed to recite every day. And on the reverse side is a prayer that you're only supposed to recite on Saturday night between, I think, 7 p.m. and midnight. And that's really strange. And the first time I did that prayer in parentheses, I was in my living room. And I saw what you could probably compare to the distortion you see on hot asphalt on a really hot day, that mirage. I saw something like that move from right to left in my living room. So obviously that prayer had some kind of effect. It either opened a portal or summoned some sort of spirit. And so I was quite happy, not because I was dealing with demons, but because I was now part of this famous or perhaps infamous secret society. I was on the inside. I was one of the elite. And I thought they were going to show me all these wonderful things. And it turned out to not be anything like that at all. Once you've gone through the ritual with the hoodwink on, it's one thing. But then once you've been initiated, they never ask you to wear a hoodwink again during the other initiations. So things proceed in a slightly different fashion. However, every once in a while, they will invite entered apprentices to revisit the cabinet of reflection. And so what they'll do is they'll take a group of us and they'll ask each person to go in and sit in it for a short period of time and tell us what you think. And so I go in and I realize, okay, this is not just a room, this is a portal. And they even tell us, the Grand Master of the Lodge told me, the cabinet of reflection is not just a portal, it's like the central hub of a Masonic lodge. And they literally tell you during the White Lodge meetings, when we bring you in here the first time, we actually open a quote unquote Stargate with what is down below, and they expose you to that. So they literally tell you that they are exposing you intentionally to malevolent spiritual beings. So basically, during the entered apprentice ritual, when they take you underground, they are taking you into a necromantic ritual pit in order to contact the exalted one of the pit. But of course, they keep all these things concealed from you. So you literally are working with demons. The man who was at the time the worshipful master of my lodge, who then became the Grand Master, would routinely assist during the White Lodge meetings. And they would impart all these nuggets of knowledge to us. And at the time, I didn't really connect the dots, but over time, once I had a little bit of distance, the Grand Master told us, the lodge meetings are really just a distraction. Your spiritual pit crew has an opportunity to work on you when you're in the lodge. They're basically telling you that demons are influencing you and working on you whenever you congregate in a lodge meeting. And that's not to say they don't follow you in real life, but basically they're working with demons. Because I also remember that after I had done that Saturday night prayer ritual, the relationship with my father was always tense. But once I came into the lodge and I did that little ritual prayer, things were just ratcheted up. He would constantly try to ambush me with certain things. He would provoke arguments. And my life was just becoming more chaotic. As much as you think when you're going into this organization that things are going to be hunky-dory, that things are going to be fine, it was quite the contrary for me. What people need to understand is that until you get to the level of Sovereign Grand Inspector General, 33rd for regular people, they're basically leading you around by the nose. They're teaching you, they will show you what the symbols mean, but it's a very surface level application. There are various different meanings to those symbols. And when you're an entered apprentice, fellow craft, mason, secret master, so on and so forth, those symbols mean one thing, but as you get up into the higher degrees, they start removing veils. And the reason that they do this, I have discovered, is that if they showed you as an entered apprentice what they're really all about, people would just run screaming in terror. Like no one would remain in the organization. So they go into this slow boil process where they gradually expose you to this stuff. And they figure that by doing that, eventually, by the time everything is revealed to you, that you'll be okay with it. And people have asked me, are there secret Masonic degrees? And yes, because every year at the Masonic Year's End, which is usually June 24th, which is a special holiday in Quebec called St. John the Baptist Day. You have to understand that every Masonic lodge is called a St. John's Lodge, as in St. John the Baptist. But they have a different view on him than the Bible. They twist and contort all the meanings of things. Anyway, so during my first Masonic year-end meeting, the Grand Master of the Lodge literally tells us that there are secret degrees above 33, and that the Worshipful Master of my lodge had just gone to the 34th degree. So that was, I guess, sort of like, they're just starting to do Freemasonry. And they'll tell you this, like, you don't really start doing Freemasonry until you get to the 33rd and higher. So everything until then is just subterfuge.
Remember that clip of Father Ripperger earlier, where he talked about the difference between the top and bottom level members? And also brought up by that former Mason as well. This time listen to this one, this clip of Father Reehil.
The problem with the Masons is that the low levels of entry point, there's no mention or you would have no way of knowing there's something diabolical about the group. It's only when they get to the higher levels that they start realizing this is not what I thought it was. But at that point, you're already invested into it because they make you take these oaths. And the oaths have curses attached to them that if you ever break away from them, the curses will come upon you and your family and your descendants. So there's a lot of people who have health problems that can't be diagnosed by doctors. And they just say, we don't understand why you have these illnesses, particularly with the stomach, the GI tract, all sorts of things like that, allergies, food allergies, everything. And so there's a very, very long set of prayers. It's about 8 or 9 pages typed out. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes to pray through them that break all these curses.
And it's interesting that the former Mason brought up about his worsening relationship between him and his father during that interview. It reminded me of what Msgr Rossetti said during one of his question and answer sessions before.
Church's rejection of Freemasonry has not been lifted. It's still, verboten, and any of those sort of organizations that are connected to Freemasonry. And there are really curses connected to it. People will see in their family members a continuing kind of problem, a cursed problem that it can't seem to shake it. Whether it's generation infidelity, strange deaths, addiction, generational abuse, all sorts of things. And it just happens again and again and again and again. It starts becoming strange. Why does our family appear to have this curse? Well, when you look back at a number of these families, what you find is that, grandparent, great-grandparent was a high-level Mason. And you may not have been a Mason, but we go through the prayers to reject the curses.
And let's talk about one of the popular claims people are making out there, that the Masons have apparently infiltrated the Catholic Church in large numbers. And Father Iannuzzi did address this claim before.
And I met a priest, an archbishop actually, and an ambassador to the Vatican, who spoke of this very thing you're sharing with me, of an infiltration going on. And I can tell you, as a matter of fact, that which people who write on these things only know by second or third hand sources. I know from first hand sources. And this Vatican Freemason infiltration, first and foremost, is a very thorny issue because, number one, it's a secret society. So no one's going to come out and say, I'm a Mason. And so how are you going to know? Have there been reports of infiltration in the church by and large of this sect? According to approved prophetic literature, there has been this infiltration, but it's not on the scale people are exaggerating. It's not on the scale. I've read false prophecies, false seers that are posted on false websites claiming to be Catholic, and there are no theologians on this website guiding it. What a surprise. Saying that the church is going to hell in a handbasket and Freemasons are in control and the Pope is surrounded by Freemasons and he's a Freemason and he's going to die on a certain date, and all these things always never come to fruition. They're failed prophecies. But there may very well be this element. So we know that if there is this element, which I believe there is, within the church, this infiltration, this evil, it's a very minuscule number compared to the others. Now, you may say, wait a minute. Did not Pope Pius XII say there's more sin today than ever in the world before? Yes, he did. Does not Jesus reveal in certain approved prophetic messages that are approved by the church that there is more evil today than ever before? Yes, he does. So then how can I say that this is a very small number? Well, I'm talking about authorities in the church, not people in the world. Yes, there's more sin in the world among all the people than ever before. Okay, just look around you. Look at the television programs, the cinema, the magazines, the internet, what's available. This has never been heard of before. So there's this global sinfulness. And according to Zechariah, the Old Testament prophet, 2/3 of the human race are going to be annihilated, which may suggest that 2/3 are evil. Could very well suggest that. But within the church, it's not 2/3 of the priests are swept away in bishops. That doesn't mean that. So I know from my travels, from my preaching and teaching, that the majority are good. They are good people. They may not all be tuned into these prophetic messages. No, they may not all be promoting these things. No. But they're not all involved in these evil secret societies. No. It's a small number, small percentage. But even though small, they have a lot of power. And they wield that power very well. So when it comes to Freemasonry infiltrating the church, we know that this is a reality, but it's a small percentage, but they wield a lot of power, these people, okay? We know that. Eight popes have condemned any Catholic that becomes a Freemason by excommunication, automatic excommunication. They take religious symbols and they desecrate them. And this is why people think that Masonry is everywhere in the church, because they see Masonic symbols that are really Christian symbols. The Trinity, the Triad comes from the church. The all-seeing eye was God the Father. But now the Masons take that and they pervert it. The Masons took it from the church and made it their symbol, like it does with other things. The crucifix. You know where the peace symbol comes from? It comes from the cross of Christ, that the Masons during a ceremony in a circle with the pentagram take and turn upside down and break the transepts. That's the peace symbol.
Or even the popular depiction of the devil with two horns.
An image of two beasts, one coming from the sea, one came from the earth. And one had two horns. One of these beasts had power of the first beast, because the first beast was wounded and gave its authority to the second beast. And this beast had horns, and the horns represent amplification. Back in the Old Testament, when they wanted everyone to be notified, they blew the horn. Mm-hmm. What's today's amplification if not social media? This is what Satan's using through the media to pronounce these evil principles and examples through cinema, television, newspapers, internet. These are the horns of the Old Testament. Social communication, internet. And the beast is using this. And this beast speaks of a false prophet with two horns, which represents ecclesiastical Freemasonry, because the bishop, the pope, has a mitre with two horns, one in front, one in the back. In the Old Testament, they had it too. And Moses, according to the writings of Anne Catherine Emmerich, had two little horns on his head. She said he had these little protrusions from his skull coming out. That's why when Michelangelo sculptured Moses, which is now found, that sculpture in St. Peter in Chains in Rome, which is just above the Via Cavour, a street that goes to St. Mary Major, he's sculptured with two horns, because that's what apparently tradition said he appeared. So the priesthood has these two horns representing the authority of Christ. Satan, who apes God, has horns as well. So the horns didn't begin with Satan, they began with Christ.
And coming back to that interview of the former Mason, I did not place this part of the interview earlier because here he's talking about the initiation process and what he went through. I thought some of you might not find this interesting, but truth be told, it is helpful to see the things that these people do.
Because the day of the initiation, I show up at the lodge and they ask for a specific attire. They say, show up in a suit, black, preferably with a white shirt and a black tie. So I show up, and the first thing that you do is that you sit down in an outer room and they blindfold you. And another very interesting detail is that they ask you to remove all your jewelry. So I don't have a watch. You lose all track of time. You don't know how long you've been waiting. It just felt like an eternity. And then after what seemed like maybe an hour, they come get you and they lead you in. And then they start taking off your jacket, your suit jacket. They open up your shirt. They put a cable tow around your neck, which is basically some sort of a noose. They remove one shoe and they roll up one of your pant legs. And basically they're preparing you. And then afterward, you don't know where you are. It's very echoey. That's all I can remember. And then they lead you into what they call the lodge. And then you hear someone announcing your presence into the lodge. And then you hear someone addressing you by name. And he says, there are over 300 people in attendance. We have some questions to ask you about your membership. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay. And then I hear another voice come on, who was actually the worshipful master of my lodge. I didn't know that at the time, but this person had a really gruff sounding voice, and he really sounded like a police interrogator. And he starts drilling me and asking me all these intense questions, like, tell us about your flaws. And so when he's asking me these questions, and he's saying things like, are we going to have problems with you, Mr. Moscato? And I said, not necessarily. And so the whole point of that interrogation is to destabilize people, is to cause the hamster wheel in your head to start spinning out of control. This is intentional. So what they want to do is they want to separate your head from your heart. And so after this interrogation, which seemed to go fairly well for me, I heard another voice say, okay, take him underground. And so they take you into this small room, completely painted black, called the Cabinet of Reflection. And in that room, which is lit by a single candle, there are signs on the wall saying, if you're just here by curiosity, get out. There's a piece of bread, there's a glass of water, there's what looks like a little flask of salt, and numerous other items. And they leave you in that room, and the reason I know that these things are there is because they remove your hoodwink for the few minutes that they leave you in that room. So they bring us into this little room, they leave us here for a few minutes to quote unquote meditate, and then a person comes to get you again, they put your hoodwink back on, and they take you back out. And then they place heavy, ponderous chains on your shoulder. They expose you to 3 elements: air, water, fire. Air, they scream these loud noises out at you. Water, they take your hands. Don't forget, you're hoodwinked here. You're completely blindfolded. They take your hands, they dip them in a bowl of water, so you don't know what's going on. And then you can feel some sort of a flame come really close to you. So they expose you to the element of fire. And then they ask you to follow the person in front of you, put your hand on their shoulder and just follow them around. And they make you circumambulate the lodge in a clockwise fashion. After a lot of these things, they make you go through a narrow door, supposedly to humble you. They make you go over a plank with studs, which is a little bit like a seesaw. So anyway, after they have you circumambulate the lodge and do all these other little obstacle courses, they eventually remove your hoodwink, your blindfold. And then you see all the members of the lodge holding swords pointed at you. And then they tell you that these swords are not to harm you specifically, but only to hold you accountable.
Well then, that will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And hopefully all of you have learned so much from this video. And remember, if ever you have any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, thanks again for watching, and may God bless you.